Welcome to How to Achieve a Healing Trend in 30 Days or Less, which means your symptoms are improving and you're feeling better without doing everything right. Gluten-free, sugar-free, fat-free, fun-free. Hi, I'm Dr. Todd Stone. My patients do not see me for symptom management. They see me for the creation of a healing trend. That's what I call the process of meeting body needs until you start to feel better, day after day, week after week, feeling better. Needs are things like low progesterone or testosterone, blood sugar imbalance, high cortisol, and bacterial overgrowth in the intestines. We have tools in our bag of tricks that will steadily improve all these needs. I'm going to share 5 of those tools with you today. And by meeting those needs, we have witnessed people find this better trend who have been told that they couldn't. I see patients struggling, often on their own, trying to find their own symptom relief because their doctors couldn't offer any, or at least enough. Eating gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free, meat-free, fat-free, no coffee, no alcohol, some of them, all of the above. And there's lesson 1. You can't diet hard enough to create a healing trend. I'm going to share a simple 4-step approach to your diet, and it only says no or free once. Plus, I have 4 more resources you can do on your own to achieve your own healing trend. Only one costs anything. How does that sound to you? Would you like this? Finding a place where each week you feel a bit better. No promises of miracles, just feeling better, and then better. I watch it happen to patients in our clinic we call True Health Family Wellness Center. These 5 resources have worked on people whose symptoms have been increasing for 40 years. It works on patients who have seen more than 10 doctors with no relief. Apparently even works on incurable conditions. I haven't been counting, but well over 20 different conditions that are considered incurable have responded to these resources. Most to symptom-free. But would you be happy with an 80% decrease in your most aggravating symptom? Or 50%? My patients are typically thrilled with 20%, but we keep improving from there. My life is one of my healing stories. At age 1, I developed a disease called ITP. If you can read those words, that's what they call it. It's where your immune system attacks your platelets, and you can bleed to death from a cut. I would badly bruise from my mom's grip when she picked me up. They tried to manage the symptoms with prednisone, but I kept getting worse. Eventually, removing my spleen in a life-saving effort. And yes, it did stop the attack and spared my life. But without a spleen and without the resources I eventually found and are sharing with you today, it left me with a weak and sensitive immune system. Before discovering these resources, I was miserable. I tried everything. My doctor coat had a streak of snot up the sleeve because almost year-round my nose ran, itched, with frequent sneezing attacks. I was sick at the turn of every season, and my shoulders ached. With these 5 resources, I resolved 15 years of shoulder pain, 20 years of allergies, and now I seem to have the strongest immune system in our house. I have many stories of being the only one in the house not sick, including impetigo and lice. I don't know how that even worked. I am open to it being my disposition. I am not overly inviting. So this is a stretch for me to give you my best. I'll share a few case studies of using these resources. Everyone I mentioned had to work to find and get to True Health, our clinic. My story was the most expensive by far. I tried everything, all the diets, even gluten-free for most of a year. I tried to quit chocolate, alcohol, and sugar 122 consecutive Mondays, which I failed somewhere between Monday evening and Friday. After a couple of years of feeling like a failure, I decided I am not a quitter. In the end, I kept one no-free rule. I had to reach comfort. But you'll see, it only eliminates certain brands. You'll still get your favorite treats, you just have to watch the brand. You'll see, simple. You will be able to do this. And wouldn't that be nice? No more midweek failures. Instead, you see and feel success, energy and strength increasing, pain and discomfort decreasing. I call that a healing trend. And here are the 5 resources that work for nearly every symptom or problem. Listen carefully. You'll need all 5 to find this spectacular place. For resource number 4, there are hundreds of options, and you'll need this 30-minute video to pick the right ones for you. Not to worry, I'm giving it to you. You don't even have to give your email to get it. I'll tell you where to find it after you listen carefully so you know how to use it. And of course, you get to decide for yourself if this makes sense. Worst case, you spend a half hour learning my resources and never try them. You lost nothing but a half hour. But the chances of that are slim. I failed over and over again. I'm not sure about 122 straight Mondays, but it's a fair estimate, and these I was able to do and continue doing now for many years. And I feel better at age 47 than ever before in my life. Remember, my first health problem was age 1, so I had no recollection of what feeling good or healthy was like. A couple of years ago, I developed this strange disease. It's called scleroderma, another autoimmune disease, this time attacking collagen, which is what adds softness to our bodies. Some people even get collagen injections to diminish wrinkles. This is what it looks like when collagen is destroyed. Sorry, kinda gross. Laura called it my zombie hand. It is also considered incurable, and medicine doesn't even have anything to help control the symptoms. They just hope it doesn't sink deeper into your body, because when it does this to your heart or lungs, they finally have something for you, a death certificate. You can't live, right? If your heart can't pump blood or your lungs can't expand and contract. I did have to avoid grains to achieve this, but I was able to with these resources, and I am back to my normal diet now, which is resource number 1. And remember, I didn't get my results, or the results we see in my clinic, from hard work and discipline. If I had a discipline, it was being open to any and all healing resources. I studied medicine, chiropractic, functional medicine, nutrition, and Eastern medicine. I found resources that provided relief in all of them. These are the 5 that provide the greatest healing and symptom relief, that offer a healing trend for virtually every symptom or condition. Discovery number 1. There are diet rules that provide relief. Maybe the quitting of everything does provide relief for some, but remember, I see patients still in their struggle following the no-free rules. I just can't say for myself because I couldn't stick with it long enough to see. These I could stick to. Rule number 1. Don't eat anything that hurts or harms your body. This is my hand after eating pizza. It was excruciating pain and itch. Sometimes there's a food you will need to avoid, but it will be pretty clear, like this hand, or the pain shooting down Melissa's right arm and leg. We discovered her gluten sensitivity and adrenal exhaustion and autoimmune thyroid condition through our testing. She was so miserable she couldn't work. And using these 5 resources, we got her to the state I now enjoy. Best ever. At age 70. She said the same thing. I don't think I have ever felt this good in my life. This is the no-no I discovered the hard way. I used to drink Diet Mountain Dew and eat hydrogenated fats in low-fat foods. Both are considered food chemicals, and food chemicals always hurt or harm your body. Depending upon how strong your body is, you may be able to afford 95% free. My body's getting stronger for the first time this year. I know I ate something with MSG. I read the package after I had 2 breakfast sausages, and I didn't have any symptoms. In the past, I would get heartburn, feel like I had to lie down, and then not be able to sleep. Food chemicals are found only in packaged foods, and if you read the labels, you will find it doesn't eliminate anything, except certain brands. The largest food manufacturers use these food chemicals to increase shelf life and profitability. They are not considering you, me, or the greater good. So we don't want to give them our money anyway. I'd rather give my money to a company that considers my health. I had a few Monster energy drinks over a week, and I woke up one morning feeling like I had a thyroid problem, groggy and exhausted. Artificial sweeteners, flavors, colors, and hydrogenated oils have to be eliminated. My children have inspired at least 10 people to stop us when out, mostly at restaurants, and acknowledge them for being so well behaved. But one bright red cupcake, and they go nuts, screaming, fighting, crying. Life is too much to handle. No food colors, and they are surprisingly resourceful and well-mannered. When congratulated, I smile, thinking back to when I was the kid's age. Nobody ever acknowledged me for my good behavior. I was well known for bad behavior, but I was miserable, irritable, sensitive. If I have accomplished anything as a parent, I have the healing resources to keep their discomfort to a minimum. No food chemicals. Why would you want them? Rule number 2, 80-20. 80% whole foods, which I define as how nature offers that food. Whole wheat versus white flour. Honey versus sugar. 20% of processed foods is the limit. More, and you will wreck your healing trend. But you can indulge reasonably. All vegetables and meats are whole foods. Fruit is whole. But if your blood sugar is unstable, it could still hurt from high sugar content. It is nature's candy. So what this rule declares is to be reasonable. Maintain a reasonable limit on indulgences. And white flour mac and cheese is an indulgence, while whole wheat mac and cheese is food. You choose where you spend your indulgences, but if they exceed 20%, it will not feel good. I choose whole wheat bread, pizza, pasta, and save up my indulgences for chocolate, sugar, and beer. Wine, beer, and alcohol clearly are in the indulgence category. And here's the flexibility of the rules. If I'm out and I want an extra drink or two, I double up on resource number 4, and I can pay off the cheat or the rule break. Awesome! I use that fairly often. The third diet rule is our family dining room rule. Kids will eat only mac and cheese, grilled cheese, pizza, because they're yummy. They can have all they want of those, the whole versions, so that they can afford chocolate and gummy worms and malt balls, all the chemical-free brands. Rule number 3 is, in addition to yummy whole grain grilled cheese, they have to choose a vegetable and a protein. You can grab some carrots if you don't like what mom made. You can grab some almonds if you don't like meat. But you have to choose a protein and veggie. Not that I don't sometimes have cereal for breakfast. Some kinds are very yummy, and some are even whole grain. But 80% of the time, protein and vegetable. A serving is considered the palm of your hand, so we're just talking a handful of each. I do more at times because I have felt the value of vegetables. All of us in our family sometimes use this resource, Greens First, a greens drink, dehydrated vegetables and herbs, that doesn't taste like lawn clippings. There are other shortcuts, I'm sure, but if you do this, 80% of the time, you will be able to find that healing trend. Rule number 4, and last one, easiest one, eat what you prefer, what you like. If you follow the first 3 rules, 80% of what sounds good for dinner will meet your nourishment needs. If you maintain 80% whole foods, and 80% of the time you include a vegetable and a protein with your meal, what you enjoy the most will be the nourishment your body most needs. You'll get more accurate with practice, paying attention to your body and its preferences. Because we're programmed to eat the right thing. We'll even choke it down. No, I eat what I feel like eating, even when it's an indulgence. Discovery number 2. This is really an attitude adjustment. Attitudes are adjusted fairly easily. It happens when you see a new perspective. My perspective was avoid, eliminate, or suppress all symptoms. They feel bad. They are bad. What I discovered is the true path to healing is honoring symptoms as messages, informing you what you need. This is the most simple step ever. Just listen to your body more. I'm pretty good at it now, but I was nearly completely distracted from my body's signals by my focus on suppressing the symptoms. I changed my focus to, what do I need? And it was a huge step towards relief. That's it. When you wonder what the heck is wrong with you, consciously choose to also ask, what do I need? And sit with the question for a minute, because your first answer will often be some type of escape. Which is fine by these rules. If after a minute you decide you need to escape, I escape pain with at least 12 unhealthy resources. I just pay them off with more of resource 4. But you might find if you wait a minute, you'll find some deeper needs. and desires. Discovery number 3. My neurology professors taught that life and healing are simple addition. Add fuel, which is glucose and oxygen, and stimulation. Stimulation in neurology, what stimulates the brain? Is motor and sensory, movement and feeling. If you don't move in full ranges of motion, the neglected muscle fibers will begin to ache, just like if you stay in bed too long. Also, the areas of the brain that are fed by that movement don't receive the stimulation, which means the simple formula is broken, and life begins to decrease, which you definitely don't want for your brain. I created 6 movements, patterns. I call them baby patterns because they are the first movements we master. They are various combinations of squatting, pulling, pushing, bending, twisting, walking, and then deep knee walking, which we call lunging. If you do these movements 7 minutes per day, 1 minute of each movement, and in the video I show how to do them if you are movement impaired by pain or weakness. 7 minutes a day, and you will see and feel a significant step towards healing. And your coordination and reflexes will improve. After a few years of doing these movement patterns, I tripped on a hike, I stumbled, kept my feet, but what was amazing was that my reflexes were so efficient I didn't sprain my ankle or knee or hip or back. I can compare that experience to age 18. I was walking on a railroad track, one misstep, and I sprained my ankle so badly I could barely walk. On our hike, I patted the back of my head and said, "Thank you, cerebellum. I'm impressed." The cerebellum is the part of the brain that coordinates movement and reflexes. I'm impressed with mine. This one I learned through my own pain and desperation, my own healing trend story. I had always struggled with allergies, although somewhat better with the resources I had found already, but still bad enough to drive home from the pool one spring day because the chlorine and pollen combination caused nearly an hour-long sneezing attack. I was clearly not fully meeting this sensitivity need. Then one day, I still vividly remember the very moment. It felt like a knife stabbed into my eyeball on the right side. My sinuses swelled up, so I couldn't breathe through my nose. In case you have never had the pleasure of complete blockage, you can't sleep when you can't breathe through your nose. You wake every hour because your tongue and lips are so dried out they begin to hurt. It was awful. The night it started, I took my best resources, including Advil, and woke with increased pain. I added more resources, supplements, and day 3 was even worse. Paralyzing. If I laid completely still, no head movement, I could get the pain from unbearable down to excruciating. I just stayed in bed. The next day, my body had managed, through complete rest, to find something less than excruciating. And there it stayed for 6 months. I added every resource I knew of. I was taking a new supplement almost every day. Finally, I acknowledged defeat, at least of my resources, and went to a doctor 5 hours away, who was getting results I was aiming for. I had even sent patients to him when we lived closer because I knew he would figure out the resources they needed when I couldn't. He diagnosed a fungal infection, also kind of gross, mold in my sinuses, and gave me something I had never heard of, a plant medicine from the Amazon called cat's claw. I was raised in America, where we spend more than any country on medicine, so I knew plant medicines have no science to validate any medical benefits. But I was willing to try anything for my pain. The very next day, a couple doses of cat's claw, a plant the natives of the Amazon use for cancer, abdominal pain, and fungal infections. The very next day, I felt better. Oh, it went on for another 6 months, but every week it was better. I was moved emotionally by this relief, this healing trend. I still had bad days, even emailing this doctor saying, "Please help me, it hurts so much." To which he replied, "Do what I said, take your medicine." I didn't completely understand back then, but this plant was meeting my needs, nourishing and strengthening me. Now, if I have a symptom or bad day, I take my plant medicines more often. And it often meets the need, relieves the symptom that day. I think I would have healed faster if I'd have taken more. With that amazing result of relief where every available pharmaceutical had failed, I added plant medicines to my clinic. This is when I began to witness results that were impossible, that were not supposed to happen. Like the scleroderma I had, and ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's disease, over 20 conditions that can only be managed, if at all. We found a healing trend. Psoriasis too. Our patient with psoriasis said, "My skin never looked this good," with methotrexate, one of the pharmaceuticals for psoriasis. A medicine he had to stop because it caused liver failure. I was his only option. With my previous resources, I could barely budge a basic thyroid problem. Now I was getting thyroid patients so healthy, they didn't need their hormone replacement anymore. I don't prescribe pharmaceuticals, so I tell my patients, if you want to come off your medicine, you need to discuss that with your prescribing doctor. Then, one lady said, I just stopped taking it. I guess she just felt so good. And nothing. No return of her old symptoms. No return of fatigue, weight gain, hair falling out. Her energy systems were making more energy without help. Almost like it healed. Then I started seeing the incurable diseases begin to heal. It seems they are incurable only if you don't have the right resource. Oh sure, there was a significant time of learning what works for what. I started searching history and tradition of plant medicines instead of PubMed, which is the National Library of Medicine search tool. I found that these medicines have a history dating back to the first documentation, the writing down of observations. The Bible shares the story of Jesus, and it is clear the writers viewed him as a gift from our Creator. At his baby shower, he was gifted 2 plant medicines that I now use, frankincense and myrrh. They were as good as gold when Jesus was born. Yes, it could be just a story, but I used frankincense with Colby, who was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. You have to read his story. We improved his life story so much compared to what medicine told him to expect. And it is one of the most devastating conditions we have turned around. I guess along with my scleroderma prognosis. Harden my heart, kill me. With different resources, I found a way better prognosis. Both Colby and I are fine. Now here's the tricky part. I also discovered a hierarchy of healing, meaning if you don't meet the number 1 top priority need, plant medicines seem ineffective. You have to have a system to know what is the top priority. In clinic, we achieve that through lab testing. But I'm giving you a video that offers the easiest way to choose the best plant medicines for you. It's so simple. If your condition needs a pharmaceutical, these are the plants that support your pharmaceutical medicine. Don't worry, I've double-checked on contraindications. They're not only safe to add, but ideal. I know, many doctors say don't take supplements with medicine. We don't know what will happen. And that's true. They don't know. They are not open and willing to look. Here's what I found. I read a study published on the National Library of Medicine website that reported that the addition of reishi mushroom to patients receiving chemotherapy for their cancer found that the chemo drug targeted the tumor more efficiently and side effects were drastically reduced. In almost every other country, they see the value of plant medicines and use them side by side with pharmaceuticals. Another study, they added a plant called golden thread to the drug vancomycin, which is an antibiotic. The patient outcomes drastically improved. What they were trying to kill was C. diff. If you haven't heard of it, it is one of the antibiotic-resistant bacteria. They were just trying to keep their patients alive. And many more lived when golden thread was added to their medicine. With Colby, we were confronted with C. diff. I added golden thread to the frankincense I already mentioned, and our outcome was fabulous. His labs all returned to optimal, and his symptoms disappeared. I have witnessed this enough to feel certain you are going to like the results of God or nature's medicine, however you want to look at it. I also found this study, the AMA Journal, reporting that 106,000 people die each year from taking the right medicine and the right dose. They added in human error, medicine mistakes, and concluded that the American Medical Association is the third leading cause of death. I have yet to find a reported death from plant medicines. If you come across any, please let me know. Go ahead, Google it. See what you can find. I acknowledge ignorance. I find it more comfortable, so I could always be wrong. Discovery number 5, acupressure, or slightly more credible in our culture, acupuncture. It's an Eastern philosophy of medicine. In China, this is their most traditional and scientific medicine. It speaks of energy. The pressure or the needles give or release energy to a certain organ or system or body location. And I have made meeting your energy needs so simple. You can't not try it. I almost always see immediate results. It seems dumb, tapping your face. But I haven't been sorting for what's dumb. I was just sorting for results. And this dumb resource really works. One time, my second daughter, Sacred, stepped into a hole in the road where the tar had broken. The tar tore a nice gash in her shin, and she sprained her ankle. Instead of doing what my caregivers did, tell me I should watch where I'm walking, no kidding. Instead, I held her tight as she cried and tapped the color that corresponded with her hurt. I thought I would be carrying her home, our little family walk ending for the priority of injury. But I hugged and tapped, and she turned toward the path we were following. Again, impressed with nature. Only this time, not anything to eat, just an energy to add. Doesn't this make sense too? Points on our body to stimulate, activate, to send energy towards your need. If your right knee doesn't hurt, you accept its energy and strength. If it hurts, you give it energy and strength. And here is the easiest way to heal your energy. Look at this chart. If your discomfort location is red, tap the red points on the same side as your discomfort. If it is right in the middle, tap pink. If both sides, tap both sides. Preferably while you take your medicine, offered by whatever created all of this, our world. If you use this resource even once a day for your most aggravating symptom, touch the area, tap the face point, which are called beginning and ending points in Chinese medicine, in 30 days you will begin to heal and end your suffering. If you follow all 5 steps, be reasonable with your food, it creates your energy and healing. You'll never find more easy rules. Ask a new question in your mind. Move your body as nature intended. 7 minutes. Ideally. But if you pick 3 per day, it'll still work. Take the plant medicines most specific to your needs and tap the acupressure points most specific to your loudest discomfort. Take more of your plant medicine when you stretch the 80-20 boundaries and on bad days. And you will find this amazing place I call a healing trend. And I wouldn't be surprised if you witness an incurable disease feeling better, perhaps disappearing. I don't have an agenda. I am just sharing what works after spending nearly $300,000 on tuition and seminars and self-healing. See, most expensive. This was my witnessing, my observation, discovered by being open to all possibilities and not believing anybody. After so many mistakes, bad advice, failures, Diet Mountain Dew, low fat, I decided that I would just see for myself. I tried everything I could find, even some illegal drugs, to ease my discomfort. This is what helped relieve my discomfort the best, and yay, they're all in the legal category. Well, maybe I do have an agenda to share this free gift far and wide and ease or relieve some of the suffering I see and feel. Now, let me ask you one more question. I bet you'll see a healing trend if you do these 5 things. But what if I could increase the certainty of relief to nearly 100%? I'm getting results that amaze me. And there's one more resource I use to get my results to near 100%. I swear, I can't think of many cases, patients I've had, who aren't very pleased. How many doctors have you been to and left disappointed? Now, I can't give this resource to you because I have to pay for them. I don't want you to feel sold or anything, so if you're not curious, click to stop and go get your free stuff. All good. I bet when you see the results, if you do these 5 things, you might look me up after seeing how helpful my first 5 resources were.
My 6th resource is for people like I was, desperate for relief. This accelerates relief.
And I'm offering them for 30% off what all the people in the stories below paid for them. And we're dang glad they did. If you'd like to hear more, give me 10 more minutes, if even. The last resource I use outside of my hands is our lab testing. It virtually guarantees that you will get to the root cause, that top priority need. And then your plant medicines work more like the stories of Jesus. Just takes a bit longer. Let me go over them real quick, and you'll see. Your doctor didn't run these tests. Food sensitivity. What are you eating that is hurting you? And we even know what to do if nearly all foods seem to hurt you. Shirley was down to meat and 5 veggies. Anything outside of that, and she would feel exhausted, her hair would fall out in clumps, and she would have 3 days of insomnia. Seriously, she had 6 foods that didn't hurt her. The last food she reintroduced was beer. Actually brought a bottle to my clinic for me to desensitize because she had a few and her symptoms came back. Gut ecology and function measures everything living inside your gut, including good bacteria. I think Activia has a guarantee on their yogurt that by simply replacing healthy bacteria, it will cure your constipation. Give it a try. But save this page because I don't think Activia would have worked for Colby. C. diff, a feared and deadly infection that we resolved with golden thread and frankincense. And it's documented on lab, and his life. So hard to argue with my eyewitness account. I doubt it would have worked for Eva either. We found gluten and soy were hurting her. Plus, she had a parasite in her intestines. She had no idea because they weren't like pinworms that kids get, which you can usually see and feel around your area. These ones burrow into the intestinal wall, slowly deteriorating its effectiveness as a barrier, which you might have heard of as leaky gut. In her case, the damage was significant enough to cause internal bleeding and anemia. So she was anemic, allergic, and seriously infected, and her doctors offered antidepressants. I am not the smartest person in the world, but in my experience, if you have a symptom, it is a message that something is wrong, a need to be met. So I kept looking until I found all the testing I needed to make certain we reveal the highest priority need. The priority system is just like life. If you have a burglar in your house, nothing will stop you from protecting your home and family, except maybe a bullet. Your body is the same. Acute trauma must be cared for first, then invasion. Bugs and worms. Next priority is stress. If your house is on fire, you stop planning dinner, which is the next level. No invasions and resolved stress, we nourish and thrive. The stress level is tested by adrenal hormones. These hormones are critical to your sleep and wake cycles, blood sugar, and of course your response to threat. If you feel threatened by criticism, which is what I learned in school, do it right, don't make a mistake. You run stress hormones all day long, which is exhausting. And then you can't sleep at night. If we know this is the case, I have the perfect plants for you. Well, different plants depending upon the findings of the test. Are your stress hormones high, or are they flatlined low, like little Tempe? She had adrenal insufficiency, which is the medical term for super low adrenal hormone production. She also had optic nerve atrophy, which is the medical term for blindness. They said she wouldn't survive without being on prednisone for the rest of her life. And the blindness, well, there's no cure for that. Tempe's mom was a patient, and she was telling me this story, and I said, I'm pretty sure I can get her adrenal and pituitary hormones up using plants. And it couldn't hurt to use functional neurology activation to see if we could save her eyes. This entire case was documented by Child Protective Services because her neurologist reported endangerment because she chose my path. It's documented that her neurologist said she would be dead in 6 weeks without prednisone. In fact, part of her deal, mediated by a DSS agent, was that she could keep her daughter and continue using plants and brain stimulation as long as she carried an emergency prednisone pen in case the doctor was right. She could inject Tempe if mom found her unresponsive. Undocumented is the torture mom went through. Guess how much you sleep when a doctor with a white coat forces you by law to carry a pen because he knows she will die within 6 weeks. You will need this, and when you fail, you will finally listen to me. Against that opposition, she followed her heart and was scared to death it might be wrong. It is documented that Tempe is now 4 years old and still forced by law to see this man, who still won't admit that her path had a better outcome. Last visit, mom reported that her blind kid sure does a lot of reading. She sits for hours. It's very clear in many ways that she is seeing. So now I have my helping the blind to see story. It just went a little different. I taught mom how to stimulate her eye movement and vision, such as shining a light into her eyes. And that's how it goes, right? We're in the dark, it's warm, and bright lights. That's the birth process.
What do you have?
A flower.
What color is it?
This.
What color? A yellow flower?
This story significantly influenced my changing uniforms. This is my logo. It's from ancient Eastern traditions older than Jesus. It means cooperation of opposites under natural law, the 5 elements. I see so many hurt people, it appears our country needs to learn these natural laws. What an amazing mom. I know only one other woman in this world who would follow me against that much resistance, and I married her. What an amazing story. I posted the whole story with all the details below. The next priority is thriving, the multichem blood analysis, to measure thyroid, anemia, blood sugar, all energy production, because thriving is energizing. If you have any type of energy problem, these tests will find it. Imagine finding Eva's parasite, but not the anemia. She would have felt better, but she would have stayed tired. Maybe her gut would heal and she would start absorbing better and build back up slowly. But why wait? The last level is steroid hormone testing. They run reproductive functions, which on a cellular level is cell division, also known as healing. Rhonda struggled with heart palpitations and hot flashes, so severe she could barely sleep. Her doctor said, "Your heart is fine." She would return in greater distress, and they would check her heart again to report it was still fine. I shared her personally telling this story below. I hear heart-wrenching stories like this every day, and I can barely bear the pain. So, if you do the first 5 resources before we ever meet, you'll be able to tell me a story of pain relief. And that you want more relief. So, left with no answers or relief, and getting worse, she turns to the internet and reads about heart palpitations and progesterone. With no medical background, she takes her best shot at relief. Any new variable gives at least an ounce of hope, and that's healing itself. She may have even made a decent choice because hormones can cause her symptoms. But one of my functional medicine professors taught that creams accumulate in the body, and as that hormone level gets higher and higher, their cells decrease responsiveness to that hormone. Kinda like when Amory kisses me 1,000 times in a row. Eventually I say, okay honey, that's enough. And so you get symptoms of low progesterone, even though they're toxically high. It turns out he was right. Her lab value was greater than 1,000, meaning her levels were somewhere higher than the lab was calibrated to test to. And that's pretty significant. 1,000 is 10 times the healthy range. There were other steps for her, too, but for this one, we stopped the cream and gave her NAC, the medical secret for acute poisoning. It's actually an amino acid, which is in the realm of nature. If someone swallowed a whole bottle of Tylenol, if they're brought to the emergency room in time, they give them a huge dose of NAC straight into their blood, and it binds up all the poison and saves the day, if you find them before too much damage is done. She had toxic levels of progesterone, so we gave her a few capsules a day and time, which is part of nature's healing plan, apparently, and her hot flashes went away, and she could sleep again. And if you take the leap of faith and trust to hire us, you'll pay 30% less than she did to find the same value. I'll give you 30% off our first visit too. Yes, we are close enough to make this a priority. I have several patients that drive over 3 hours each way because they have felt the value. That means you get an hour of my hands, mostly testing your body, but depending upon the problem, I do the laying on of hands thing too. I'm somewhat less effective than Jesus is storied to have been, but I have wondered if I have extra healing strength. I'm not sure how to test what percentage of healing comes from my hands. I tend to give most credit to the plants and the other resources, but you get an hour of whatever value they provide. But first, we have to share what we found. And you might have a million questions. So you get my mouth and my ears too. And I guess my expertise, what I have learned in 20 years of healing. And if you're driving over an hour each direction, let Laura know. She'll make that initial appointment an hour and a half. We try to do more each visit because it is a stress to drive, and we're trying to relieve that. It all works out. Also, when Laura is packing your box of test kits and instructions, she'll add our Healing Mindset book. When did natural become the alternative? It will get your mind prepared for healing. But it's not critical, so if you're not a reader, send me an email, just reply to your order confirmation and say, save the paper. It's a gift, so it doesn't affect the cost one way or the other. And you'll see how super simple,
How ridiculously simple to find out what stands between you and feeling healthy.
Laura will have instructions in the box. There might be 1 or 2 instructions more, but simple. And instead of paying almost $2,000 like Rhonda, Melissa, and Eva, you can save $600 to finally understand the root cause of your struggle and what to do about it. One last thing. My patients come back to recheck to be sure we are winning, generally a few weeks in a row, to ensure we find that healing trend. Then every couple weeks, or less if travel is stressful, but for longer visits, the patients whose stories I shared paid $150 per visit and as much as $250 per month in plant medicines over 6 months to get to a place of great relief. Plus, they paid full price for retesting. We recheck if our medicine cleared the worms, parasites, bacteria, or balanced the hormones. And they paid full price for their initial evaluation and lab report visit. This is probably insane for a physician to offer. But for the first time, I'm offering an all-inclusive, all of that, with the satisfaction guarantee. For this, that means you are covered on all your plant medicines, time, as much time as we need. Labs, from start to finish, one payment. And then, my motive is only heal you. Or I don't earn what supports my family. And in the least amount of time, with the fewest resources, since each visit and medicine costs our clinic something. Do you see how this deal is me going all in for you? Totally unheard of in medicine. For 6 months. And if you aren't thrilled after 3 months, you can request a refund. If you're not happy. And Laura will cut a check or run your credit card for a refund. For all the time in medicine. I have to pay for the labs, so that won't be refunded. But I'll tell you what, I will guarantee the labs discover your root cause. If I don't find what is causing your struggle, if my only answer is, I must be in your head, I will refund every penny. We won't even have our first visit. Laura will just contact you to see how you want your refund. Don't worry about me. These tests have never failed us. I'd take this wager any day. I'm reserving the right to refund your purchase price upon review of your story. When I read your intake forms, if I get a bad feeling, I'll call it off. But if you are sincerely looking for help and willing to be open to different resources and letting go of the right way, I won't get a bad feeling. Laura will send your medical history forms with your labs, and they must be back before your visit to go over your labs. They're pretty extensive, maybe 10 pages. I appreciate detail, not necessarily writing extra pages of your story, but filling the blanks with as much detail as possible. Think of it a little bit like an application to join our team. And it's just one way, but the only guaranteed way. If you can afford all in for 6 months, I am willing to wager we'll find the results you want. But I've also had people who could only afford one visit at a time, one bottle of medicine at a time. $250 per month is 5 to 7 different medicines and supplements. But that was all that they had. It took more time. One lady kept it up for 10 years on a very limited budget, stretching each medicine to the limits of time. But she could feel the value, and after 10 years, she feels best ever, in her 50s. And her autistic child, who I watched grow up, is now graduating high school. And he's just a little quirky, but not sure if any more than I am. And the 5 resources are already yours for free. Your only cost will be purchasing the plant medicines that support your pharmaceuticals. Laura custom blends here, so if you contact her, she'll mix exactly what you need. And we'd appreciate any support of our clinic. So however you need to do it, be the person who says, nope, this is not acceptable, not good enough for me, and take your next best step, like Rhonda taking action from a story on the internet. You now have proven resources and an option to upgrade to certainty. Click on the root cause button to find your free DVD and instructions for resources 4 and 5. There's an order form for resource 6. Filling out that order form is the only way to get our 30% discount offer. And if you want resource 7, guaranteed results, my word, be sure to check the button to upgrade your order before you complete the purchase. If you miss it, just let Laura know and she'll fix it. Whatever you choose, you'll be glad that you ran across our little clinic. If you just do it. I hope I get a chance to meet you. If I did my job right, you should feel a slight increase in hope and faith, and a good bit of empowerment. If you appreciate our offering, show it socially below. Have a super journey.